Hello everyone, welcome to Election Ketwil. In this video, we'll be taking a look at the 2024 electoral map based on current polling averages from every state. This is going to be the most comprehensive video out there. We'll examine every state where there is data to show you what polling is telling us about the race to 270 electoral votes. We'll begin on the West Coast with Washington, where Kamala Harris leads by 13.8%. It's going to be likely blue on our map, despite Joe Biden winning the state by a solid 19-point margin 4 years ago. In Oregon, Harris leads by just 5 points in the only poll between her and Trump, so the state will be leaning Democratic on our map. In California, Harris's home state, she's ahead by 24.5 percentage points. The Golden State will be the first solid blue state on this map, and it will go in favor of the vice president. Next up is Nevada, one of the 7 swing states. Currently, Kamala Harris holds a very narrow 1.1% lead. Considering how polls have overestimated Democrats here in the past, it's unlikely she will win the state. She's being propped up by an outlier Bloomberg poll that has her leading by 7. In the end, I expect Trump to win Nevada. However, based purely on the data, it's going to be tilt blue on our map, a state no Republican has won since 2004. In neighboring Arizona, Trump leads by 1.7% in the polling. Just look at the line of polls. Nearly every single one has the former president ahead. This is a state he actually lost in the last election, where Joe Biden flipped Arizona by 0.3%. This time, however, against Kamala Harris, Donald Trump is on track to take the state back. Arizona will be the first state on the map going in Trump's favor, and it's going to be tilt red. Moving on to Colorado and New Mexico, 2 states Biden won by double-digit margins in the last election. In Colorado, Harris leads by 11 points, but this is a Democratic-sponsored poll, so expect her to do noticeably worse. Based on the data we have, Colorado is going to be likely blue. In New Mexico, Harris leads by 8.5 points, but the race is tightening. The most recent poll has her leading by just 6. For now, New Mexico will also be likely blue for Harris. In Texas, Trump was heavily underestimated against Joe Biden, as he was expected to win by only 1%, but he came out on top by nearly 6 points. Today, the former president leads by 5.2% against Kamala Harris. I fully expect him to win Texas by around 10 points when all the votes are counted, but for now, Texas is lean red on the map. This will give Trump 40 electoral votes, a big prize for the GOP. Now, for the states in the middle of the country, yes, we're going to look at the polling even out here. This is, again, the most comprehensive video you'll find. In Utah, Trump leads by a whopping 32 points, so it's going to be solid red. In Montana, the former president is ahead by 17.5 points. Montana also has a very competitive Senate race, where Republicans are on track to flip the seat, helping them take back control of the upper chamber of Congress. In North Dakota, Trump is ahead by 27 points. In Nebraska, we have 2 polls, both sponsored by Democrats, showing Trump ahead by an average of 16.5 points. In the end, Trump will win Nebraska by a much larger margin. In Nebraska's 2nd district, however, Harris is ahead by 10%. This is a very liberal region of Nebraska, mainly Omaha and its suburbs. In Oklahoma, Trump is ahead by 16 points, but he's expected to win the state by a much larger margin in the end. The remaining states, Idaho, Wyoming, South Dakota, the rest of Nebraska, and Kansas, will all go solidly to Trump. Before we continue, 80% of you aren't subscribed, so please take a moment to subscribe for more content like this as we head toward the November election. Also, join my Discord server to chat with me personally. Link in the description below. Moving on to Alaska, we have 3 polls here. They're likely underestimating Trump, but for now, they show him with an average lead of 8 points. So, Alaska will be likely blue. As for Hawaii, we don't have any data yet, but it's probably going to be solid for Kamala Harris. Moving up to the Midwest, this is where we find the highest concentration of competitive states. Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania are critical for both campaigns, but let's get some of the other states out of the way first. Starting with Minnesota, Kamala Harris leads by 4.7%. The most recent poll has her ahead by just 3 points, and this state is becoming increasingly competitive, despite Harris running with the state's governor, Tim Walz, as her running mate. For context, Joe Biden won Minnesota by 7 points in 2020, and he did not have the state's literal governor on the ticket with him. So, for now, Minnesota is going to be lean blue. In Iowa, Trump leads by 5.7%. I expect the polls to underestimate Trump once again, just like they did in both 2016 and 2020, but based purely on the data right now, Iowa is going to be lean red. Meanwhile, in Illinois, Harris leads by 16%, making it solid blue. In neighboring Indiana, Trump leads by a solid 17 points, so Indiana will be safe red for the former president. Before we continue, I want to tell you about H Market, the world's largest prediction market, where you can track election results and instantly see who's leading. These odds react in real time to current events rather than days later, like with traditional pollsters. There's no bias or media spin, just pure data. They've also launched a new app where you can access their 2024 election forecast on the go. Check them out at polymarket.com and download their app from the App Store. More details are in the description below. Continuing with the map, we have Ohio, a state Trump won by 8 points in both of the last two elections. Today, he leads by that same margin, but keep in mind that in both 2016 and 2020, the polls heavily underestimated him. In fact, 4 years ago at this point, Joe Biden was actually on track to win the state. So, based on the polling, Ohio will be likely red, but I fully expect Trump to win the Buckeye state by at least a double-digit margin. Now, it's time to discuss the big three: Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania, the three states that have decided the last two elections. In 2016, Trump flipped these states from blue to red, becoming the first Republican to win them in 30 years, which is why he was able to defeat Hillary Clinton. Then, in 2020, when Joe Biden won, it was Wisconsin that pushed him over 270 electoral votes. Starting with Wisconsin, a state Biden won very narrowly in 2020 by just 0.6%, which was even smaller than Trump's margin in 2016. Today, the race is exceptionally close between the two candidates, with Kamala Harris holding a 0.8% lead in the polls. However, we need to take this with a grain of salt, considering how much the polls have overestimated Democrats in the last two elections. In 2016, Clinton was predicted to win Wisconsin by 5 points, but she didn't win the state at all. In 2020, Biden was polling 6 points ahead, but he won by only 0.6%. So, while the current data has Wisconsin as tilt blue, I expect Trump to eventually come out on top. Next, we move to Michigan, where the race is even tighter, with Harris leading by just 0.7%. Michigan is the most liberal of all the 7 battleground states, which you can see at the top of the list of key states. If Harris can't win Michigan, it's unlikely she will win any of the other toss-ups. Right now, her margin is extremely weak, especially when we compare it to where Clinton and Biden were in 2016 and 2020. Clinton didn't even win Michigan, and she had a much stronger lead in the polls. She was leading in the polls by over 5 points, so I also expect Michigan to go to Trump when all the votes are counted. However, based purely on the data we have right now, it is going to be tilt blue on our map, just like Wisconsin and Nevada. Now, moving on to Pennsylvania, this is the big one. The Keystone State will probably decide the election. It's the state that will push either Harris or Trump over 270 electoral votes, which is why so much attention is focused on it. It has 19 electoral votes, the largest of any swing state. In 2016, Trump won it by 0.7%, and in 2020, Biden won it by 1.2%, making it highly competitive over the last 8 years. Based on today's polling, we actually have a tie, which is good news for the Trump campaign. In fact, Trump leads in most of the polls conducted in September. If we look at where Biden and Clinton were 4 and 8 years ago, Trump is doing much better than he ever has. If you check the RCP electoral map, Trump has a very small lead, but rounding errors make the race appear as a tie. On our map, Pennsylvania will be tilt red. With Trump leading in this state, it's going to be tough for Harris to win, as Trump has historically been underestimated in the polls. Now, moving on to the Northeast, most of these states will be dominated by Harris and the Democrats, but she is definitely performing worse than Joe Biden did in 2020. The biggest example is New York, where Harris leads by just 13.5% in a state Biden won by 23 points 4 years ago. She's also doing poorly in New Jersey, which will be another likely blue state that was solid for Biden. Harris leads by just 12% in the only poll from New Jersey. In Delaware, Harris is ahead by 18.5% on average, making it solid blue, as it is Biden's home state. In Maryland, she's ahead by nearly 30 points, another solid blue state. As for the District of Columbia, we don't have polling data, but it will obviously vote blue. Up in New England, Harris leads Vermont by 41 points, making it another solid blue state. Massachusetts will also be solid blue, where Harris leads by 29.5%, making it one of the most liberal states in the country. In Connecticut, she's ahead by 16 points, just over the 15-point threshold for solid blue status. In Rhode Island, Harris leads by 15.7%, also just over that threshold. All of these states were carried by Biden in 2020 by over 15 points. However, New Hampshire and Maine will be more competitive. Polls from the University of New Hampshire are skewing the averages, as they tend to overestimate Democrats. Based on the current data, Harris leads by 7.4% in New Hampshire, putting it in the likely blue category. In Maine, she leads by 11.7%, again influenced by those UNH polls. In Maine's 1st district, Harris is ahead by 28 points, while in the 2nd district, Trump leads by just 1 point, again due to the UNH poll. As a result, Maine as a whole will be likely blue, the 1st district solid blue, and the 2nd district tilt red. Now heading down to the South, which will be dominated by Trump. In Missouri, Trump leads by 10 points, making it a likely red state. Arkansas will be solid red, with Trump ahead by 15 points. In Tennessee, Trump leads by a massive 26 points, another solid red state. In West Virginia, he's ahead by 27 points. In South Carolina, Trump leads by 10 points, so it will be likely red. We don't have any polling data from Kentucky, Alabama, Mississippi, or Louisiana, but all of these states will easily vote for Trump for a 3rd time. Next up is Virginia, one of the most competitive states in the country, maybe even as close as Wisconsin and Michigan. Virginia has been shifting to the right, having elected a Republican governor, lieutenant governor, and attorney general in 2021. Harris leads by 4.8% in today's polling, which is just half of Biden's 10-point margin of victory from 2020. So, Virginia will be lean blue, but it's definitely going to be closer than that. We'll be keeping a close eye on the Commonwealth of Virginia as the election approaches. In North Carolina, Trump leads by 0.6%, but given the spread, it's unlikely Harris will win here. She leads in just 2 of the last 13 polls. North Carolina voted for Trump in both 2016 and 2020, and there's no doubt he'll win it again. Based on the polling, North Carolina will be tilt red. Georgia is also going to be tilt red, with Trump leading by a slightly larger margin, 1.5% over Harris. Out of 13 polls, Harris leads in just 1, so she's unlikely to win here, even though Biden narrowly carried the state in 2020. Trump won Georgia by 5 points in 2016, and he's on track to take it back this time. Georgia, being a generally conservative state, is likely to go to Trump by a tilt margin, just like North Carolina. Finally, in Florida, a former swing state that Republicans are now dominating, Trump leads by 6%. The state won't be close. Trump could win by nearly a double-digit margin. Ron DeSantis won re-election here by nearly 20 points in 2022. Florida will be lean red, similar to Texas, but both of these states, along with Iowa, will likely go to Trump by margins of 7 points or more. With the map filled in, the polls suggest Trump is on track to win 281 electoral votes, while Harris stands at 257. There's no doubt Trump could win more, as he's likely to take Nevada, Wisconsin, and Michigan as well. This is a significant shift. It's the first time the polls have shown Trump on track to win. In 2020, he was predicted to lose with just 219 electoral votes, while Biden was forecasted to win with 319. In 2016, Clinton was expected to win with 272 electoral votes. The polls have never indicated that Trump is on track to win, until now against Kamala Harris. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button, subscribe, and ring the bell to stay informed as we dive deeper into the race. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.